Welcome back, y'all. Happy Wednesday. This is the Bluechip Breakdown, and I'm your host, Bull. Also, happy early Thanksgiving or Turkey Day, whatever you want to call it. Happy holidays to everybody if I don't get a chance to say that to you before tomorrow. But a lot of y'all are probably looking at this picture and thinking, where do I know this from? That's the thumbnail of an On3 article that's referencing Tennessee as one of the schools that might be spending the most money in NIL as soon as that transfer portal opens. And I skimmed through the article, and that's literally all it says. Does not go into detail about anything specific, but they are saying that they got that from some inside sources. Now, we're going to go through our entire roster, every single position group, just as far as the scholarship players, the players that might have a chance to actually play, and talk about what positions would Tennessee be targeting in the transfer portal. I know some of y'all have been asking for this, so we're going to go ahead and knock it out. But please make sure to like and subscribe before we get into it. All right, so let's get to the first position group right here, quarterback. We have Nico, we have Jake Merklinger, and we also will have GMAC next season. Now, I have no reason to anticipate that any of these players would not be playing for Tennessee in 2025, and they're all ballers. I think that we're perfectly fine at that position, so there's no reason to think that we need to add another player via the transfer portal. The next position is going to be tight end. Right here, y'all seen that we have 5 guys that would all be scholarship guys, and that would be the most that Coach Heupel has had since he's been up in Knoxville. I do think that Holden Staes has to come back next season because his season this year, I don't think that it's good enough for him to, have his draft stock where he wants it at. Could he turn pro? Yeah, sure he could. So probably, maybe I could have put an asterisk next to his name, but I feel pretty good about that. We also have Ethan Davis, who's shown and proven that he can do a lot of great things. He does need to do a better job as an inline blocker, but we still have Cole Harrison, who would be a sophomore or a redshirt freshman next season, and then Jack Van Dorsalier and Deshaun Brame. Those 2 guys as true freshmen, I think that their body will come, onto a college campus almost ready to actually play. So we have plenty of depth at that position. I do not see Tennessee, targeting the transfer portal there either. Now let's talk about running back. As y'all can see, do not have Dylan Sampson up here. A lot of folks just, want to hold on to him. Please come back, these Sam. But the best thing for him, the best thing even for Tennessee is if he goes pro. Said the same thing last season with Jalen Wright and also with Small. Dude, if you play running back, as soon as your draft stock is as high as it could possibly be, you have got to turn pro. D. Samp's not going to get his draft stock up any higher if he sticks around. And he's a great running back. Obviously, you hate to lose him. But look at this. There's 6 more scholarship bodies coming in next year that I think can do a good job as well. So feel fine about this room. Obviously, there's 2 freshmen down there at the bottom. Will they be able to contribute as freshmen? Maybe. I think Justin Baker would have a better opportunity because D. Morris is a little bit light to be running in the SEC. So I don't see him contributing as much as a running back. But if we put him on special teams, maybe we line him up with some gadget plays. He could probably do that, especially by the time the season starts. But I think that Khalifa Keith, okay, right there at number 4, he's another guy that maybe could transfer out. Also, probably should have put an asterisk next to his name. But everybody else, and then too, probably Cam Selden. But everybody else, I think, is going to be staying put. So I feel good about this room unless we have, I would say, 2 guys transfer out. If one transfers out, we're still going to be fine. But if 2, then yeah, we've got to go to the transfer portal. And for a running back inside of the portal, it's ranging anywhere from, about 150,000 to about, 500-ish thousand. Really all just depending on the caliber of running back that you want to get. Tennessee probably would not spend any more than, I would say, about 300,000 on a running back because they probably would not come in to be the starter. We've got other players here that we want to, have stick around for the next couple of seasons. Now, let's come on to the next one, wide receiver. Several names right here. Obviously, guys like Dante and Brew, they're gone. They have no more eligibility left, but Squirrel White, he could go, but he's going to have to come back. Has not had a good enough season. Brazel, he also, I think, needs to come back. Now, we're getting down to some players with an asterisk next to their names. That means that I feel like they could maybe transfer out. I don't know these players personally. I'm just going based off of, their lack of playing time or, whatever. I'll say that Mike Matthews would be a player that could potentially end up transferring out. I do feel more like he would stay, so we should be fine there. Chaz Nimrod, he could transfer out also. He could also turn pro. That would just be a huge mistake on his part if he did that. But I think he's going to stick around. He just strikes me as one of those players. I don't, get those transfer portal vibes from him. But then Caleb Webb, I could maybe see him transferring out. He's not getting very much playing time. As y'all can see, this room is very, very deep. I don't think that his playing time would increase next season, but maybe he looks at it like, look, if I put in the work, if I show consistency and things like that, hey, maybe I would still have a shot to get out here and play some more. So he could stick around or he might go. Then also have Nathan Leacock. He has not played, I don't think, at all this season. maybe just like a few reps versus, like UT Chat and Kent State. But for the most part, he hasn't really played. And he was a four-star guy. I was very high on Nathan Leacock. Sounded like he had a really good spring and things like that. I think that he should be able to get some type of burn. I honestly, and I said the same thing last season, would not be surprised if he did transfer out. Nate Spillman, his brother Edwin, he's playing linebacker for us as a true freshman. He could transfer out, but I think that he's probably going to stay put. And that's pretty much it for the players that I think would transfer out of this room. Obviously, some very good young talent coming in. I still think that this room is talented, but we want to add some more talented players. I don't think that you do, because you don't want to discourage these underclassmen. I just don't see Tennessee going to the portal unless we lose. I'm gonna say two of these guys, right? The same thing that we said about the running back room. If we lose two and maybe even three of these guys, then at that point, Tennessee would probably want to go out to the transfer portal and add another body, but that could have some long-term effects, especially on those younger players. Now let's talk about the offensive tackle room. All right, this is a big one. A lot of folks saying that we need to target offensive linemen, but I'm not one of them, because I think that the offensive line, especially some of this youth, I'm loving what I'm seeing. These guys will continue to get better, but really their fundamentals, their technique, it looks better in some cases and instances than even the upperclassmen do. They just have to understand what to do, and that will come with time. But we have Lance Hurd, who's coming back. I mean, he is he's a really good football player. I think that he could still potentially be a first-round draft pick. He's, gotten more acclimated to our system. That's going to be huge for him. But then Larry Johnson, the third, I think that he could probably plug in right there on the right side. But the thing about this room, keep this in mind, there's a lot of bodies here, but there's also several players that could maybe play in some other spots, especially guard on the offensive line. That room is going to be louder. I can tell you that right here, right now. And Larry Johnson would be a player that I would say, hey, he could probably play guard for us if we can find a really good tackle on the right side. And it could be Jesse Perry, because Jesse Perry looks great as a true freshman. He's going to grow a lot between now and the start of next season. After that, man, Bennett Warren, he's looked good. Gage Ginther, he's got a little ways to go. Trevor Duncan, he looks good, but he's got a ways to go as well. To me, I think that actually Trevor Duncan looks like he has a higher ceiling or upside to be more of a player for his next season than Gage Ginther does. He looks really good. He's very new to playing tackle. And then we have Jeremiah Hurd. I think he's got a ways to go, but he looks really good physically. Then down at the bottom, we've got, hopefully, right up kind of asterisk next to his name, David Sanders, because we don't know what's going to happen with him and Ohio State. Sounds like he might be going back there this weekend. A whole lot of Vol fans are freaking out about that. But I told y'all, I feel like they're going to wait to see what happens with that game, because this is business. You got to take your feelings out of this. It's all about, hey, is this coach still going to be here? And if that's where he's leaning at, then yeah, it might not be the best sign, because it does mean that he really is taking Ohio State seriously. But the latest intel that we have is that he's looking for a guaranteed contract. That should make you feel good as a Vol fan, because one of two things will happen, or I guess one of three things would happen, right? So he could ask for the Buckeyes to give him a guaranteed contract, right? They either say yes or no. If they say no, then obviously he's going to be sticking with Tennessee. And then if they say yes, then Tennessee would have the option to counter that, okay? Or to say, no, we're looking at this tackle room and we feel fine with our offensive line. We're not going to give you, whatever guaranteed contract or whatever contract stipulations that you're looking for. And then at that point, man, look, the staff knows, who's the best fit for this team and what they can, fork out as far as NIL and everything else. So I feel fine with that. I do still believe that David Sanders will end up inside of this class. And let me also say this. There's still a whole lot of rumors and belief that he really wants to go to Ohio State so that he can go to their medical school to be a surgeon. While that could be true, right, because anything is possible, but I would say about with 95% certainty that wouldn't make any sense, because if you already are going to be a millionaire by the time you step on the college campus, and you could probably buy your way into like whatever medical school you want to get into, imagine what happens after an NFL career, which I'm sure that he's banking on himself as an NFL player. If he's going to be a first rounder, like his entire team believes that he will be, and I do as well, then he's going to have a whole bunch of money, and it's going to be very easy to not just go to, any top 10 medical school in this country. You could go to the best medical school, the best surgeon school in the entire world. So I disagree with that. I don't think that from a up and down, top to bottom perspective, that would make sense. But those are just my thoughts, man. We will see what happens if he does end up on campus, up there with the Buckeyes. I still feel fine about it, because it's going to be freezing cold up there. Like, that's something else that people are overlooking. To me, it's fine. Like, actually, I would maybe prefer for him to go, because he went up there last weekend. He felt, I think that the high was like 24 or 26. It's going to be very similar to that this weekend. Sometimes, man, like you need some more time out there in that cold, potentially with some snow and all that type of stuff with a very gloomy look. I mean, you might not see the sun for like weeks at a time whenever you live up there because I've lived up north. I know what that's like. Coming from the south, it is a whole different world. It's a huge culture shock. I think that that would be good enough for him to say, man, I really don't want to do like what? Like, I don't want to be out here doing this. I don't want to be playing outside, practicing outside or any of that type of stuff, having to walk outside whenever it's this daggum cold all the time. And it's like that for most of the year up there. So I think that things all still point towards Tennessee. But anyway, let's move on to our guards. Right here, man, again, this is just about the scholarship bodies. This is just about the players that I really feel like can contribute this season. It's just my perspective. Now, there are some other players that are more like walk-on bodies that maybe the staff is looking at just like a Dane Davis or something. Oh, man, that guy looks really good, and we know that we can trust him. All that does is make this room look even better. But I want to go pretty much worst-case scenario for all this stuff. But only 4 guards right now that I'm looking at, and that's Sham Umarov, Aiden Bustle, who I don't think has looked great. Sham has looked, I think, very solid. Max Anderson, as a true freshman, he's looked really good. And then we have Antoni Agumuro, who will be coming in as a true freshman. I don't think that he would be ready to help us out this season. But like we talked about with that tackle room, there's a lot of players that we could maybe move around at guard. But obviously, this room is way too light. If there is a spot that Tennessee definitely is going to be in the transfer portal with, it would definitely be this one. Like I feel very confident that Tennessee has to at least go out and get one offensive guard. And, they could range anywhere from about 300,000 to maybe 600,000. And that's really just talking about offensive linemen, period. I think that, obviously the portal market, that can change drastically from year to year. Typically, we will see an increase. Will Tennessee have enough money to, like, let's just say worst case, spend like $1 million? Possibly, right? Like, I don't know what their budget is, but they will have to make some room for this position, no questions asked. Last for the offense, we have the center position, and I've got Bison Lang up at the top just because he's the veteran center. I've got an asterisk next to his name because I don't know if he's going to stick around or not, because it does kind of feel like William Satterwhite might be the guy playing at center. I think that guys like Max Anderson, who also, we just talked about him at guard, he also has played center very well. He actually did that last week, and he looked really good there. This has to understand who to pick up. That's the biggest thing with these underclassmen. So I would say that this is potentially a room that maybe Tennessee also targets. But again, the biggest thing about center is knowing what to do, having been in this system. Everyone that we're talking about right here, obviously outside of Nick Moore, who would be a true freshman, and I think that he's got a huge ceiling. He could be a very good center for us moving forward. But, these other 2 players and, all the other ones that we did kind of touch on, they know our system better. So I don't know what Tennessee wants to do here, but this could also be another position. Same thing that we talked about with pretty much any other offensive lineman, from about 300,000 to 600,000. Tennessee could potentially be spending on this position. It just all depends on how confident and comfortable do they feel with the current centers that they have on the roster. Now, next, we have linebackers. Okay, we're finally getting to the defense. This is another position group that people say, man, Tennessee has got to upgrade at this position. Now, I personally disagree because Arion Carter, he's looked really good. Right now, he's our best linebacker. Jeremiah Telander, he's done some really nice things. And I've been hard on all these guys, but I think that they get it. They will continue to get better. They'll be upperclassmen at this point. They definitely know what to do. That's the first part of it. And they have the skill set as well. I think Jeremiah Telander maybe could benefit from, maybe some speed training and things like that, but he's going to be fine. Then we have Jalen Smith. He looks really good. I told y'all last week, I feel like Arion Carter and Jalen Smith might be our best 2 linebackers right now. And that's not because Jeremiah Telander has gone backwards. It's just because Jalen Smith has gotten that much better. Caleb Perry, asterisk next to his name, because he might transfer out. I mean, he definitely could. I think that he could also go pro. Don't really see that happening. He does not have nearly enough game film to go pro. That would not be in his best interest by any means. But he could transfer out. I don't think that he'd do that. He strikes me as a guy that, wants to stick things out and just keep on fighting for his playing time. But Edwin Spillman, who we have barely seen this season, but whenever we saw him, he looked good. Coach N said, man, look, we got to dial him back. That's what you want to hear from linebackers. You want those dogs, but he runs fast and he hits hard. He could be fighting for, some real starting time next season. And so could this next player, Jordan Burns. The members know, like, we broke down all of his plays. We broke down like 3 or 4 of his plays last weekend, and he looks really good. He's a natural linebacker. Now, I think, and this is just very, very early, but I think that Jordan Burns and Arion Carter might be our 2 start linebackers next season. And I'll tell y'all, Jordan Burns, just from like a movement perspective, from a natural fit perspective, he actually looks more natural, I'll say, than anybody else, including Arion Carter on this team. Dude, he moves very, very fluidly in and out of all of his transitions. He's got to get bigger. He's got to get stronger, but that will come with an entire offseason as long as he can stay healthy. Then we have freshman Christian Gaz, who could play, like this sort of a micro will linebacker, but he could also play Leo. So let's keep that in mind. I think that he's locked in. He's said it several times now. He's not going anywhere. I would expect for him to be on this team next season. Then we have Jaden Harmon. He's another one. He's an absolute and total dog at linebacker. And then we have Brandon Ames, who, I feel like he's a pretty solid player as well. So this room is very deep with talent, okay? Very, very deep. I do not think there's any realistic way that Tennessee is going to be going to the transfer portal to supplement this room unless, knock on wood, something crazy happens and we absolutely have to. So that room should be one of the best on this entire team next season. Now let's talk about cornerbacks. Several bodies here as well. Typically, the cornerback room will be one of the deeper rooms on your roster. Obviously, up the top, man, that's two studs. That's two, potential first-round draft picks. If they can replicate what they did this season, next season, they will more than likely be first-rounders. So feel perfectly fine there. Then we have Jalen McMurray, who's also looked, very good. He can come back next season. But then we have Jordan Matthews, who's played some this year, and I think that he's gotten better. He definitely looks good. He's got a whole lot of length. He's got all the potential in the world. He could transfer out. It's because there's so many, bodies here that he has to fight against. It's going to be very difficult for him to see the field maybe next season. Again, it just really all depends on how much better can he get. Maybe the staff feels, confident and say, man, look, we got 4 shutdown corners. We might start to play more dime, or, like whatever. Maybe we'll rotate in guys more and keep everyone fresh because we just trust everyone that much. That's a definite possibility with a talent like Jordan Matthews. So will he stay or go? We'll see coming up over like the next month or so. Now, Caleb Beasley, he's a true freshman this season. We've seen him play some. He's got a little ways to go, but he can definitely make up that ground. I feel like he will come back next season. Marcus Gorey, he's done some nice things. Tyler Redmond, true freshman. Onis Konabani, there's a star next to his name because it sounds like he might be flipping to Florida. I think that one's pending. Like that one could be coming here. I think he said he's going to make a final decision like a couple of days ago or whatever. I don't know what the heck that means because you're already committed to Tennessee. So they're, the final decision, that should have been it. But either way, it does kind of feel like Florida's got, they've got a whole lot of momentum at this point. So I would not be surprised if he does not end up in this class. And then we have Dylan Lewis. He's another, really good player. He's teammates with Ty Redmond, who I think is also a very good player, very versatile. I don't really see Tennessee hitting the portal unless we lose Jordan Matthews and probably Onis Konabani. Maybe you try to go out and get a cornerback, but they would have to know what their role is. Had to be a hole like Jalen right there at number 3, getting him from Temple last season. He knew he was coming in to potentially be cornerback number 3. So I think that we could find somebody else like that. And cornerbacks could range anywhere from like $175 to, upwards of like 500,000 inside of the transfer portal. So pretty sizable chunk right there. Now let's talk about the safety position. There's several players that we're going to talk about with all of our secondary that could be interchangeable, that could play at corner, that could play at safety, they could play at star. But right here, Andre Turrentine, he should be back next season. I don't think that he goes pro. Now, could he? Yes. So maybe I should have put an asterisk next to his name, but I don't see that happening. Then we also have Kobe Thomas. I think that he'll be back next season. I don't see him going pro. Christian Charles, I could maybe see him transferring out, whether that's because I don't think that the staff would push him out because he has played very well this season, and he's gone through a lot up here with our Volunteers. So maybe he doesn't really want to go for the sentimental purposes, but maybe he also sees himself as a player that could be a potential starter next season, which is what I see him as. But I had to put the asterisk next to his name just to let y'all know. John Slaughter, asterisk right there. I feel, and I don't want to say it for sure, but I feel pretty strongly that he might be hitting the portal. Just something about his body language. It just kind of felt like, man, he doesn't feel very, confident about his chances. But if he sticks around, man, he could be fighting for a starting spot. He and I love John Slaughter. I'm seeing some very good things from him. So I hope that he does stick around. That would be great for this safety room, for the entire secondary room. Then we have Edris Farouk, who's also looked really good as a true freshman. Shady Hayward, I think he could come in and also fight for a starting spot. He's a dog, and he's told me personally that he is locked in with Tennessee. Then we have Sidney Walton, who I think has also looked very good. But for me, he's going to be more of a project. I don't see him contributing as much unless it's on special teams next season. Now let's talk about the star position. We have 4 players right here. Some of y'all might have forgot that Jordan Thomas is still on this team. He was the projected starter coming into this season. I have an asterisk next to his name because, man, Boo Carter has played lights out, and that would be tough for Jordan Thomas to come back and say, man, dang, like I got to beat out Boo. Maybe even Christian Harrison, who I also have an asterisk next to his name, but I feel like Christian would stick around. I know their family, and they don't strike me as the type of people they're going to hit that transfer portal. They're just going to, pretty much thug it out. But Jordan Thomas could hit the portal, okay, if he thinks that, man, it's going to be tough for me to start over Boo. But, man, we could have all these players splitting time. Also, Jordan Thomas could play at safety. Now, imagine how deep our safety room would be adding Jordan Thomas to it as a guy that can, play it, star as well. Then I have Trey Poteet, who would be a freshman. He's listed as a corner, but it does sound like the staff went out to get him to play star. So I've got him here as well. So that room looks good. The last couple of rooms, I don't really see us adding, any bodies to, because our secondary, we've got several really good players. We're deep. Now let's talk about defensive tackle. So Jackson Moy, he's going to be back. He's going to be good. David Hobbs, he's looked good. Nathan Robinson, he's looked good. Jamal Wallace, he's got a little ways to go, but I think he's going to be solid. Ethan Utley coming in as a true freshman. He's going to have to, really all these true freshmen, they're going to have to step up, okay, and give us something, because as you can see, right, we've only got 4 veterans coming back as far as scholarship players go. So this room, man, I'll say, yeah, we'll probably add somebody, but let me get to Marion Dye, because he's a player that right now is listed at like 6'5", 270 pounds, and he can literally play anywhere on our front. Even Leo at that size, that's crazy. This guy, his upside is tremendous. He's a player that I am fully expecting, as long as he stays healthy. Again, knock on wood, I probably shouldn't have even said that, but I think that he could, as a true freshman, not just be a player, but be a dude, be a guy. He's very, very special. I'm super excited about him. So every time that we go through, we're going to go through the strong side ends and the Leos. Keep Marion Day's name in the back of your mind, because he could play any of them if we need some more depth. But then we also have Charles House. I think that he's going to be good. Darion Smith, meant to put an asterisk next to his name. Sounds like he could be potentially flipping to Auburn. So that's one to watch, and that would hurt us, obviously, from a depth perspective inside of this room. And then down at the bottom, I've got Isaiah Campbell, and I think that he will ultimately end up in this class. Over the next couple of days, we'll probably hear him going ahead and say, look, I'm officially going to be committing to Tennessee, because we know that it was between us and North Carolina. We said that, man, we don't know what's going to happen with their head coach. Sounds like Mac Brown might be out the door, and that's now official. But the problem there is that it's very close to home. I didn't realize it's this close, but it's like within 20 minutes of his house. So could be a problem, but I think that ultimately he will end up with our Tennessee Volunteers. So this is a room, okay? Long story short, y'all, this is a room that I feel like Tennessee more than likely is going to have to go and get probably not just one, but 2 real like veteran defensive tackles, because Coach Gardner loves to rotate in bodies, especially at that position. We will not be as deep next year, even though we're seeing all these numbers. A lot of these players are freshmen. I really only fully trust, I'm going to say 2.5 of them. Jamal Wallace, he's not there yet. We're going to have to go out and get somebody else for sure, so that we can keep the rotation going. So actually, let me go back here real quick. So the tackles, right? Just to go out and get them out of the portal, that could range anywhere from about 300 to 800,000, and that's really for all defensive linemen. Tackles typically don't cost as much, but again, this all depends on what sort of a player it is. Tennessee's going to go out and just get the right fit. We might not go out and get, like a really, really high caliber tackle, because we do not want to disrupt the chemistry of that room and of our locker room, of our team in general. So I'm thinking Tennessee needs to target 2 at that position. Now let's talk about Leos. Next season, Joshua Joseph, asterisk next to his name, because he could come back, but he could also go pro. This really all depends on how his draft stock looks, I think, at the end of the season. But he's played very, very well. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going pro after this season. So we might not even need to count him. Let's come on down to Caleb Herring. He's played pretty well. This has to be more disciplined. Jordan Ross, he could actually end up being the starter. Talked about it. I think that he's James Pierce 2.0, and he might end up being better because he's already bigger. And I think that he's actually faster. So he's got a tremendously high ceiling. And then we've got big old Emmanuel Okoye, who is, I think he's getting more acclimated to football. And P and I have talked about how he's more natural just as a pass rusher, because there's a lot less for him to have to think about. And, I think that he could contribute for this team. Outside of that, like we talked about, Marion Dye could maybe end up playing at Leo. He's a huge guy to play this position, but he's a good enough athlete to do it. So the room might not be as bare as you might think. I don't feel like Tennessee goes out and tries to get another edge rusher. Is it possible? Sure it is, but I don't necessarily see that happening. Now let's get on to the strong side defensive ends. Now, Tyree West, asterisk next to his name, because he could go pro after this season, or, he could come back. I don't know what he's going to do. Again, it just all depends on where the mock drafts and, where his agent has him slotted at for the NFL draft. I would say that for most of these players, if they are, well, yeah, I would say probably for most of them, if they're like round 3 or higher, then they're probably going to try it. But for a guy like Tyree, if I was him, I would stick around for one more season because he can get his draft stock up a lot. Like he could potentially be, a first round draft pick, maybe early second round draft pick. I think that that's his ceiling. So I could see him coming back. Then we also have Jason Jenkins, who could also leave and go pro. I would definitely lean more towards him coming back next season. But, again, we'll see what happens. Then we have Tyree Weathersby, who has looked pretty good. Not as shifty. He doesn't do as well out in space as I thought he would. But, I think that his injury last season kind of set him back. We got to get him going. But, I do still, you can see it. Like all the talent is there. So we're going to be fine. Carson Gentle heard some great things about him. He's looked good on film. He's been flashing. Dylan Lindstrom, he's a guy that's going to have to add some weight, but he also looks really good. Then we have Jaden Lofton coming in as a true freshman, and I think that he has an ACL deal going on right now, so hopefully he can get all that, figured out and situated. But he's another one that could be very, very good at this position, and he could also play at Leo. So we are fine right there, just as far as that room goes. I do not see us adding any more bodies, but that's it. That's every single position group on this team. Feels like just guard and probably defensive tackle. That's where Tennessee is going to be looking at in the transfer portal. Probably not going to be spending that much money just as far as going out and getting new players. Now, the thing about it is Tennessee still has to do a good job of maintaining our current roster. How much money are people going to be asking for coming out of this season? And will it be too much for Tennessee to hold on to those players? At that point, then, yeah, we have to go to the transfer portal in some situations and maybe, add some more players. But I think Tennessee is going to be pretty light in the transfer portal this season. It's just a couple of positions. So all the rumors about, man, Tennessee's got to do a whole lot inside of the portal, I don't see that being true. Y'all saw it for yourself, but let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. And as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.